Hey everyone, I'm Father Alexander, Rector St. John the Divine in Sun City Center.
And I am lucky enough and blessed enough to be the rector of All Angels by the Sea on Longboat Key. It is a gorgeous day. There is no wind. It is fantastic. And my name is David Marshall, and I am also honored and privileged to be Alex's friend
Ah,
and to have you listen to today. Not you, but to have the listeners. Well, I'm also honored to have you listen to. Should we redo that intro? Never mind. We're rolling with it. It's Holy Week, baby. Holy Week.
yeah, a little long, but I think they got it. And
It's a
you
little long.
know,
Got the
as
weather
you were
forecast.
as you were commenting, the shadows cast on my face make it look like I've got that black, stuff that goes underneath your eyes.
For
Because it
football,
for football, because for me it's Super Bowl, man. So,
it's Super Bowl.
Easter is the Super Bowl for me.
It
So you
is.
gotta get your game face on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is Bridge Between. If you've been following us, you know that we did some wonderful stuff, bridging Lent to Easter. We've been following Lent also with some of the other readings that aren't the gospel. And we decided to do something kind of special today, which
Hmm.
is we're going to give you three for the price of one, which is
Wait,
still
the one's
free,
free. All right,
which
it's
the
still
one is
free. Okay,
free.
good.
It's still
Nice.
free,
Right. Nice.
but it's not going to be three times as long, which I think is also good.
Okay.
We're talking
It could be.
today.
Well, we've never done this before. I'm hoping it's not three times as long,
All
but
right. Well,
yeah.
what we're talking about today is we're going to be giving preachers and those who preach with their life some information and some insight and reflection on the great Triduum, the great three holy days, which are Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday, and then of course the Vigil slash Easter Sunday. Because
Wait, why
if
did the vigil slash Easter? I don't understand.
because it's 3 days, it's the Vigil is
Oh, I see. So it
incorporated
wasn't a
into
verb to slash. It wasn't
no,
like going out
no.
because you were still within the Super Bowl thing. So I thought,
Yes.
it was
But
clipping.
yeah, so we're doing that because for many preachers, when you get to Monday, Thursday, and you start to get um, into those three holy days, it's
Mhm.
grueling. And you're really exercising those preaching muscles. You're exercising a lot of work to produce some insight and some reflection for your congregation, for those to whom you're preaching
Mhm.
to, and that can be exhausting. I know
It
that
can.
every single year, Dave knows this. Every single year, I struggle with Easter because we had it last year. We're having it again this year. What can I possibly add to this story? What reflection or insight can I give to this story that has not been given by much holier, more intelligent, and great saints of old? So we always need to kind of talk to one another, bounce ideas off of one another, and see what the Holy Spirit is calling us to do.
Mhm. And so, what my friend is telling you, folks, is that if you're preaching on Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, or this Easter weekend, and if you're looking for something to preach on, Alex is going to share with you what he is preaching for Monday, Thursday, and for Good Friday. Because honestly, it's Good Friday is the one that I struggle with the most.
Hmm.
And I'm going to share with you, which I normally don't, but I'm going to share what I'm preaching on for this Sunday, as long as I still have a voice. It
Which
must be
is
Holy Week, right? Our voices are
which,
already failing.
which is the
So,
other struggle I deal with. I don't have a very strong. I don't have very strong vocal cords because they were damaged. So I have to deal with that and just kind of pacing
oh,
myself. Yeah.
okay, yeah, for sure.
So
So, should
so
we dive into Monday,
yeah,
Thursday?
let's talk about Maundy Thursday. So Maundy Thursday is a wonderful time, I think, especially for clergy, for priests, because that celebration of the Eucharist feels so special. I mean, we know that we are living into the Last Supper every time we do
Mhm.
the Eucharist, but
Right.
Maundy Thursday really feels like it.
Yeah. And so,
And
folks, if I before we go on, just
Mhm.
because my friend Linda in Chula Vista right now was saying, "What is Monday?" Right.
ah,
So Latin for
Maundy
mandate, as in mandatory,
mandatum,
and right. And as I told my congregation this past Sunday, uh, Monday Thursday means mandatory Thursday. So I'll see you all there on Thursday, um, and which
right?
is funny because not as many people attend. It is the institution of the Holy Eucharist or
Hmm.
Holy Communion or the Last Supper, however you want to call it, that Jesus lifted up bread, broke it, and said, "Do this in remembrance of me. And do this as in keep doing it, keep
Right.
breaking the bread, keep sharing it until I return. And so this is, if you imagine the curtain opening on the first Eucharist, the first Holy Communion celebration ever. And so that's what we get to do on Maundy Thursday.
Right. And so the other thing, of course, is Jesus commands his disciples to love one another as I have loved you. That is the
Yep.
commandment. I give you a
Yep.
new commandment. And
Mhm.
he seals that by foot washing, this
Mhm.
act of humiliation and humility that not even a slave could be forced to do, but he does it. And the disciples, of course, are scandalized and shocked. Oh my gosh, you can't do that. You're the head guy. You're the leader. You're Jesus. If
Mhm.
you do that, that might mean I have to do that.
Right.
But Jesus is very clear about what it means to have authority in the church, what it means to have authority as God, and that what they're being called to do about how they should love one another.
Mhm.
The angle that I'm taking, or the vein that I'm kind of trying to harvest here in Maundy Thursday, is the concept of how much food costs. And right now, if you're going to the grocery store, my brother went. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought you were preaching on the most expensive meal you've ever had.
That
Or
I'm getting there.
oh, you're getting there. Okay,
I'm
okay,
getting
okay.
there.
All right,
I'm
all
just
right.
saying that, my brother went to the grocery store yesterday. He bought three things and it was $50. He's like, this is ridiculous. And I said, well, eating out isn't much better
No.
because there's some pretty expensive meals out there. And so I looked up all these luxury meals that you can get. And so my favorite one is a $13,000 taco. Have you ever
What?
had a $13,000 taco, Dave?
I don't have 13. Well, anyway, yeah. So even a
You can put on,
$13 taco is expensive.
yeah,
You know, in San
I'll,
Diego, we got these street tacos are $1.25, right?
well,
So
that's what I was going to say. $13 taco might
yeah,
be expensive, you
right.
know, but this taco has Wagyu beef, which is that, very expensive Japanese, Wagyu beef. It's got
So good.
beluga caviar
Oh
in
boy.
it. And it's got a gold flake encrusted and infused tortilla.
Hmm.
So it's just the epitome of luxury. And
Hmm.
I was talking with my wife about this, and one of the things she said is, the one thing she can't wrap her mind around is that it's going to be gone in 2 bites.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
so expensive, but it's going to be gone in 2 bites. And I kind of talk about a meal with the dessert that costs $8,000 and stuff like that. And really, the turn that I make is that as Christians, it's still not the most expensive meal we've ever had, because the most expensive meal we've ever had is the Eucharist because of
Mm.
what it cost. And so
Hmm.
when we think of what the Eucharist costs, it costs two things. First, Jesus offering himself. So it is Jesus as God and human offering himself to us and saying, take and eat, take and drink. Let this become a part of you and that you become a part of me, that we are in co-union or communion with one another. But also, the Eucharist is tied directly to Jesus's death and resurrection. And so he specifically does this on the night before he is going to be killed,
Hmm.
because it is tied to his sacrifice. And so we cannot have the Eucharist without the crucifixion,
Right.
without the shedding of his blood. And so the lesson, or the answer really to that homiletical question that I always talk about, is the Eucharist is expensive, but it is free to
Hmm.
all, to all those
Hmm.
who believe. And so we should treat it with dignity, with respect. We should treat it with understanding the cost and not taking it so lightly, not telling our congregations that this is something that it's not to be taken so lightly, and just take it reverently is kind of what I want to say.
Hmm.
And the one day of the year where I think we can really hammer this point home, that the Eucharist is not just a routine that we go
Right.
through, is Maundy Thursday.
It is. Yeah.
So that's kind of the angle that I'm taking
Hmm.
with Maundy Thursday.
The most expensive meal you've ever had. That is fantastic, Alex.
Yeah.
I might actually, I think I'm going to use that. And should I mention your name? Probably not. So
You don't have to. You don't
you
have
don't
to.
have to, right?
Yeah.
The liturgics professor that I had, Lewis Weil, he would talk about Maundy Thursday as the time to really hold the commas, to really hold the
Mhm.
pauses. That this isn't when we just on the night before he's betrayed, he took bread, and no, do
Yeah.
not read it as if you are reading it for the first time and that you're reading it to a bunch of 8-year-olds. Read it slowly, and even when you're holding the bread and you're going to break, wait, just hold it longer. That this is the time. And for us in the Episcopal Church, if I can be frank, even though it's a mandatory thing, Maundy Thursday, it the folks who show up are the ones who either have never experienced it or the ones who really, really know the story. And either way, slow it down
Oh
and
yeah.
really dive into it.
Well, I had a wonderful experience for several years with an assisting priest who was kind of a retired priest. He was an older guy. He's still around. He's still working,
Hmm.
and he was a catcher in college in minor league for baseball. And he would always, whenever I would come to the altar, he would always tell me to slow down. He says,
Hmm.
"You go too fast."
Hmm.
And so he would stand next to me on my left when he was going to point, and he would put his arm kind of around my side and pat me as if I was a pitcher and
Oh wow.
say, "Slow down and
Yeah.
pray the prayer.
Yeah.
Don't say the prayer." And I
Yep.
think that's what you're saying is you need to pray the Eucharistic prayer, not
Hmm.
say the Eucharistic prayer. And can I just go off on a 2-minute rant here?
It's our show,
Okay,
so
well,
yeah,
what's
feel
up?
free.
There you
All
go.
right.
So, one of the things that I wish we as priests, as celebrants, let's just put all celebrants in there.
Mhm.
I wish we felt the freedom, or at least I'll speak for myself. I wish that I felt the freedom to take my time and really savor the celebration.
Mhm.
I hear about priests and saints who, that the Eucharistic prayer itself took 20 minutes because
Right.
they did it slowly and the elevations and the movements were slow. But
Mhm.
I feel that pressure sometimes. It's not from the congregation so much, but just feel that pressure that, hey, we got to get done in an hour here, man. Coffee hour's coming. We got to get, through these things. People are going to be impatient. But the
Right.
times I've taken more time, I felt people have appreciated that.
Yes.
So maybe that's something I need to be praying about. That Maundy Thursday could be a good example of how I can pray this prayer consistently throughout the year.
Hmm. So Stephen Colbert, the Roman Catholic, who also happens to have a late night talk show, he can do the Apostles' Creed in one breath, and he showed one night that he can do it.
Hmm.
And again, Lewis Weil would say that's not the purpose of the creed, right? It's
Yeah.
to be able to say the Apostles' Creed in one breath. That's not the purpose.
No.
I
Right.
have run into several churchgoers who say, "Oh yeah, that guy's my favorite." Well, what makes
Why?
him your favorite? Because he gets us through in 48 minutes.
The record for me, not for me, the record, I was there and it happened. I was in seminary and a professor, I will not say who, it
Okay,
was a said service on a Tuesday,
right?
and he completed the entire thing in 18 minutes. And I mean, he talked fast. He had somewhere to be.
That seems impossible,
Like
but
well, there was no music or anything. Like,
okay,
he had somewhere to be, but
right,
coming
right.
coming back to what I was saying, I think it's just as we savor good food,
Hmm.
we should savor this celebration
We
because
should.
we were told to do it by somebody who says, "I'm not just telling you to do it, I am it."
Hmm.
Yeah.
I am the bread. I
Hmm.
am broken so that you can share it with others. And this
Exactly.
is my life force. This is my blood. This is who I am poured
Hmm.
into this chalice. You are to drink it. You are to share it with others. And it's for the forgiveness of sins.
Amen.
Amen. Right.
Amen.
It's
Right.
awesome.
So.
One thing I did with
Mhm.
the confirmation group was our final confirmation class yesterday. And we walked through Eucharistic Prayer A, which is
Oh
what
yeah.
how I usually wrap things up. And um, that so to take it slowly, go through each section and ask what the theology is. What is this expressing? And the point that really this particular group found intriguing was um, the night before he was betrayed, and handed over to death. Jesus took bread. And the pause between took and bread is for history when somebody is going to be betrayed and put to death. they take up arms, they take great offense, they
Hmm.
run away, they, that there are so many other things that everybody else in history takes up something else. And yet Jesus took bread, blessed it, broke it, shared it, and said, keep doing it. That is the
Yeah.
uniqueness, and that's what we celebrate, in my opinion, on Maundy Thursday. And at All Angels, we don't wash feet. We're assuming your feet are going to
Well, we
be
joked.
washed.
I joked yesterday that because I like to go through the schedule of what the services are going to be this week, and I said so Monday, Thursday, 6:30 p.m. You know, institution of the Eucharist, washing of the feet, which means all of your pedicures have to be done by Wednesday.
There we go. Perfect.
And of course
Yes.
they were like, yeah, but I've actually seen a church do that where they gather, where all the people who want pedicures get together
Mhm.
on Wednesday, and then I'm like, that's fine, that's whatever you
Right.
guys want to do.
Right.
So shall we move to Good Friday?
I think we should move to Good Friday. The aforementioned service that I have the most difficult preaching on.
Well, first of all, I think that one of the things I've noticed is that there are some churches that do not do the official prescribed service of Good Friday on Good Friday from the
Okay.
prayer book, because the official service is the Solemn Collects.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've run into more than one congregation that they do something else. They do the seven last words. They do. I think the Solemn Collects are very important. It's like the prayers of the people on steroids,
Right.
um,
I'm
and
getting
it
my book out.
also and it also gives an opportunity for I think laypersons to really get involved. One of the
Okay.
first services I ever did as an Episcopalian was the Good Friday service because my mentor was sick. He was in the
Oh, interesting.
hospital,
Uh-huh.
and a layperson can do the Good Friday service.
Right.
Consuming all of the reserved sacrament was hard, but
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
but the theme that I touch on for Good Friday is this concept of suffering.
Okay.
And do you remember the in the movie Jaws? I'm sure you've seen Jaws.
Yeah, it still freaks me out. But yes, I've seen
Okay,
it.
well, good. I'm not
Yeah.
going to scare you. Don't worry. But in
Well,
the in the in the
it's
movie
scary enough.
Jaws, one of my favorite scenes is when they're sitting there talking in the boat at night, and they start
Hmm.
comparing scars,
Right. I
right?
love that. Right.
And they kind of like try to one up one another. And I think that happens. I mean, when I'm around guys, that can happen. Like, oh, I've got this cut here from when I did this, and somebody will say, oh, well, I,
Hmm.
nicked myself with the.
Right.
And the truth is, though, is that oftentimes we do not talk about our suffering.
No.
We don't feel open. We don't feel safe to be vulnerable to say, this is what I'm going through. And when
Hmm.
we talk about suffering, I mean mental, physical, emotional, spiritual.
Hmm.
And as a priest, I feel like I have a different insight because a lot of people come and talk to me about their suffering. But I think if I
Correct.
wasn't, a lot of people would not tell me what's happening in their life.
Right. Right.
And I don't always. I mean, I'm very blessed that I have a lot of friends, but I still live in a society where it's not always the thing to do to talk about what you're going through.
No.
And we have Jesus's story of suffering for a reason, not just because it's the story of our salvation, that is the
Hmm.
primary reason,
Okay.
but also because Jesus sanctifies suffering. And what do I
In what
mean
way?
by that?
In what way? Yeah.
What I
And
mean
what do
by
you mean by
that,
sacrifice? Again, somebody who doesn't know that
I
word.
know I'm getting there. I'm getting there. What I mean,
Okay.
what I mean by that is, um, if you an atheist will sometimes walk up to a Christian and say, how can you worship a God or love a God that allows for suffering to be in the world?
Okay.
And you got to provide an answer about why there is suffering in the world. And what I usually say is that there is suffering because we're fallen people in a fallen world and we hurt one another. I mean, that is the brokenness that we experience.
Hmm.
But what Jesus does by taking on the cross, by being flogged and then being crucified, is he says, suffering can have meaning. Suffering can have meaning beyond ourselves. Suffering can have meaning for our community.
Hmm.
Suffering can have meaning in the eyes of God. And because of that, suffering can actually be holy and set aside for God, which is
Hmm.
what Jesus' sacrifice was. It was something he did, he allowed to happen to himself to be set aside for God.
Hmm.
Which means, Dave, a practical application of this is that if you're suffering and you come to me and you share with me what you are suffering, and I embrace you as a brother, not just because we're brothers, but also because we're Christian, that
Right.
I say to you, let's pray in this moment and offer this suffering to God.
Hmm.
Let's take this right now and say, this can't just be about us. We cannot handle this and hold on to this on our own. Let's give it to God who knows what suffering is, not just because Jesus suffered, but because God the Father had to watch it.
Yes. Yeah. Secondly, suffering in our particular culture in America, not only
Hmm.
do we not want to share about where we are struggling or where we are suffering,
Hmm.
we also do a really poor job at listening to those who can share their story. And
Hmm.
so Good Friday is also the opportunity for us to sit quietly, and in my case, in pretty much a darkened church, although it's bright and sunny, but it's the sense of listening to hear what suffering is, and then that helps us listen to others who are open to share where they are suffering.
Well, there's one more wrinkle to that,
Okay.
and that is Jesus teaches us not only what is suffering, but how to suffer, because he
Okay.
offers it to God. He does not lash out in vengeance. You know, there was a woman, she died, it had to be, 11 years ago or 10 years ago now,
Right.
that she was in the process of dying, an incredibly faithful woman. And I don't just mean because she went to church. I mean, she had a deep, deep faith and she had accepted that she was dying and she
Hmm.
was not angry with God, any of those things. But she was kind of unsure about what all this meant.
Okay.
And I said, well, the important thing that you need to understand, and she had been a teacher, I said, is that you've been a teacher all your life. And now you're teaching us as well. And she says, well, what am I
Hmm.
teaching? I says, you're teaching us how to die.
Yeah.
It says, I said, the grace that you are demonstrating, the faith that you are demonstrating is literally teaching me for the day that I will meet death, that
Hmm.
maybe I can think back to the examples that I've had of people who've died, and you're one of them. And, she was just blown away by that idea.
Right.
Um, but it's true.
It is true. Um, the other part about Good Friday is it's stuff I've been writing about, and that is that nobody gets out of here alive,
Yep.
not even Jesus.
Yep.
If anybody could get out of here alive, it would have been Jesus, but we don't.
Right.
And so it is and I've had many Christians, and I share this sentiment, which is why I'm passing it along. Is like, I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of the process of dying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, me too. I
Yeah, yeah,
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, to kind of put the bow on Good Friday, so to speak, Good Friday is sometimes portrayed as an opportunity to impute guilt on people, to make people feel bad about Jesus's death. I don't try to do that. On
Good.
Palm Sunday, I lead a reflection that I posted online
Right.
that shares about we are the characters in the story, that we
Hmm.
are in fact the crowd, we are in fact Peter, we are Judas, we are all of those people who are in the story. So don't always think that you or I are the hero. Okay.
Hmm.
We can also be those who are broken as well. But on Good Friday, I think placing suffering in perspective is incredibly relevant today.
Hmm. I completely agree.
There's
Right.
tragedies, but there's also the personal tragedies that people are dealing with. And you and I, as I said before, as clergy, we hear people's struggles a lot.
Hmm.
And I don't know about you, but there are times I just feel helpless.
Well,
I can't cure.
most of the time, I feel helpless.
I
Right.
mean,
That
I
there.
cannot cure this person's
No.
disease. I cannot, put a family back together. I can't do any of those things. And so I ask myself, what am I there for?
Hmm.
Well, I'm there because I'm representing Christ who wants to comfort people
Hmm.
and be there for people. So that's, to me, that is what Good Friday is going to be about for me this year, is
Hmm.
placing that context of suffering in its proper context and helping people to see that they can tell the story of their suffering as well.
Mhm. It reminds me of Simon of Cyrene, who carried Jesus's cross. That with suffering, he couldn't fix it. He couldn't change the entire structure, the whole plan of what was happening, but he could carry it for a while. And that if somebody comes to you who's suffering and has opened up and shared, they're not. This is a hard part to learn in ministry. They're not calling us to fix it. They are calling us to
Yeah.
carry and to bear.
Right.
Jesus
And
bears
yeah.
all of this with us, that Jesus bears all of our pain and all of our suffering. He carries it with us.
I,
So
I
for
I love that. I think that's entirely true.
yeah,
So do not leave us in any suspense longer. If you are the preacher for Easter, let us know plainly.
nice. Yes. I was going to joke with you. Well, thanks, folks. That's the show. And they're like, what? What about Easter?
No, you're not getting off that easy.
No. Good. So the Spirit speaks to me in unique ways to help me figure out what the message is. And my prayer is always, every week, it is give me the message that you want your people to hear. So
Hmm.
not the message I want to preach or the thing that I think is really cool or kind of fun, but no, what do you want your people to hear? And then let me be the instrument to bring it. So with that prayer, thankfully, and this happens most Easters, is that I get the message a couple weeks before Easter, so I can start working on it, or at least not having to pine on it. And so this year, I received, it was one word, and the word is risen. Risen.
Okay.
Risen is, of course, found in Luke's gospel, if you're using that one this year. If you're not, risen is still within our entire liturgy. So he is risen, right? That's something that we talk about. So I've been pondering the risen aspect of things. So if you think about the Gulf of Mexico and you think that the water itself has salt in it, has fertilizer, has all sorts of stuff, but we get to watch, at least on All Angels, we get to watch these clouds that form from the water that is rising. That water evaporates, it forms into clouds, it goes over North Carolina, it drops it, it runs back down, and it has this cycle that there is this natural sense of risen. And what the water is that rises, the water that leaves, is pure. It is clean. It leaves all of the sediments and everything else in the water down below, and what rises up is clean. For instance, our oceans are getting saltier
Hmm.
because salt comes from rivers and the water runs down. They will just continue to get saltier and saltier. It's just how the process works because the water that rises is clean and pure. If you think about the Christmas tree is a symbol that pagans and then early Christians gathered and started to use because it points to rising, it points upward. That plants grow upward, grass grows, grass rises, right? There is so much in nature that continues to rise up. And so the image I'm going to use is that of a bulb, and not a light bulb, but the type of bulb that you bury in the ground, and
Hmm.
then you get this beautiful lily that shoots up from it, showing the rising. And the bulb is not the attractive part of the plant. It's rather ugly. And so you were talking about scars, and that from a scar that we've received from suffering, the rising is the what rises from it is something beautiful and can be something beautiful and life-giving. For those that are listening that have cesarean section scars, if you've had a C-section, that scar is the bulb of rising, right? It shows that new life is forming and coming up. That rising is all around us. And so when they said, he is risen, and then when they realized he was risen, they ran back and they told the others they're out of breath, they're amazed, they're scared, they have all these different emotions, and all they can get out is that he is risen. It's all they can say is that he is risen. And so it's the sense that what God is doing in nature, what God is showing in scripture, God is also revealing in our lives. And so there is a part of us that is risen, that there is a bulb somewhere in our soul that cracks open and that new life rises. And that, so what Jesus is doing in his body and his life, and as what we have in scripture, is showing what is happening in nature, that to rise. And so I'm going to print up little cards. I don't have any with me, but so that you can put it on your dashboard, you can put it on your refrigerator, you can put it where your house somewhere, and it will say "risen." And it's a way for us to remember in our lives those things that are rising, those things that are creating new life. And Alex, you really, really want to talk, so I'm
Oh,
gonna.
you've hit something with me. Um,
Okay.
because I'm listening to that word risen, and the word that I got is they didn't say he's alive.
No,
They said he's risen.
exactly.
And so here's the thing that I think about in terms of sharing this with a congregation and sharing this with people is that if they would have said he's alive, it's kind of like in a movie when a person is trapped in under rubble,
Hmm.
you know, and they pull back the rubble and they see the person is, their body is broken and they have a faint pulse. He's alive.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's not what they said. They
Mm.
said he's risen,
He's
which
risen.
means it's new life. And so I think a question that I may ask during Easter is, are you alive or are you risen? As
Or
a,
are you still in the tomb?
or are you still in the tomb?
Yeah.
Because I think for many Christians, they don't see the difference.
Hmm.
I think we just look like, oh, hey, listen, I'm alive. What more do you want from me? I'm
Hmm.
here at work. I showed up. I'm breathing.
Hmm.
And it's
Right.
like, no, that's not the life we're called to. We're called to the risen life, not
Hmm.
just to be faintly alive with a pulse and barely hanging on.
Hmm.
So I think that's something I want to really explore because Jesus was in a tomb, and if he had just been alive, he would have come out of that tomb completely flogged, his body destroyed, and that's not inspiring anybody to anything. I'm not
Hmm.
following anybody who looks like that, who just
Right.
says, "Don't you want to be like me?" No,
Right.
I don't want to be anything like that. But when he shows the disciples his hands and his side, and they're
Hmm.
glorified,
Hmm.
I want to be like that.
Right. So instead of the zombie rising, the zombies come right. That's not it. This is risen. This is
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Oh, and
Very good.
side note, I believe in the slow zombies. I don't believe in fast zombies, by the way.
Okay.
I'm
That's
more of a
good.
Walking Dead kind of zombie than a World War Z zombie guy, just
Ah,
for the record.
I have seen neither of those, but I understand the reference. So I have seen The Last of Us. Most of
Okay.
it. It was
Okay.
ugly. I skipped over a lot, but
So to bring us back from my interlude here for a second, what I'm hearing when you talk about risen
mhm,
is encouraging people to pay close attention to when Jesus says, a grain of wheat has to die
yes.
before it can bear fruit.
Mhm,
And that's maybe for Low Sunday the next week, talking about, well, what does it mean then to die to ourselves? What does it mean to let go of that old life?
mhm.
Um, I think I've found what I'm going to talk about.
Good. And you had mentioned the beginning of our podcast that it's the same story. What are we going to say again? We need to be reminded of risen. We need to be reminded of our lives and what God is rising within us, and that this Easter Sunday is another time for us to remember, because we often in our minds or in society or gossip, whatever it is, makes us go back into the tomb, makes us want to become that bulb that gets buried in the ground and not
Hmm.
raise its beautiful bloom up, right? But we need to be reminded of risen, and that God, like with a friend that you were talking about that was teaching you how to die, um, she too is risen.
Oh, yes,
That
I
it's
firmly
yeah,
believe that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that but you have to die in order to be risen. So you have to put the bulb in the ground and bury it and water it in order for it to become so beautiful.
So, I just want to, for the last part of our time together, I want to share just a little bit of what I'm going to do for the kids for our 10 a.m. service. I'm going to share a little bit about Mary Magdalene because we're using that text,
Okay.
and you're not going to be able to see it on the radio podcast, the Spotify podcast, but I'm going to use a visual here, which is Mary Magdalene heard.
Mm-hmm.
She heard
So
Jesus's
Alice is
voice.
putting his hand up to his ear.
I'm putting my hand to my ear. I
Yeah.
said, then I put my hand to my mouth. She proclaimed,
Okay.
right?
Good. Mm-hmm.
And then I put the kind of heart symbol. She
Mm-hmm.
loved. Oh, look, it's even doing the little
Hey, it even does.
stud. It does a little notification thing. Well, because I have a Mac, so it's not
Oh,
going to do that for
and
you.
I can't even
But
do it
see,
with my hand.
if you do
I'm
this,
not.
you get hearts. Look at that.
Wow.
So the essence though of what Mary Magdalene's witness was is that first she heard the risen Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And she heard, go tell. So she proclaimed, she became the first one to proclaim the resurrection. And then she loved her brothers. She loved the other apostles enough to tell them, not just proclaim to them, but
Mm-hmm.
to say, you need to come and see. I need
Mm-hmm.
to bring you with me physically so
Mm-hmm.
you can see what happened.
Right.
And
Right.
that is what I want our young people and what I want our adults as well to hear on Easter, that you need to go and you need to first hear, then
Mm-hmm.
proclaim,
Mm-hmm.
and then love people enough to bring them to this place.
That's fantastic. So putting your hand by your ear, she listened, and then your hand
Mhm.
by your mouth, she proclaimed. I want to do the Mission Impossible Tom Cruise arms. She ran and she told them
I can't do that from a seated position, but I think Tom Cruise Tom Cruise would have gotten to the tomb first,
he would have for sure.
but he would
Yeah.
not have gone in. He wouldn't have gone in.
No.
He would have waited
Yeah. And at some point, he would have ridden a motorcycle. I don't know when, and I know they weren't invented yet, but
and then
still.
jumped out of an airplane to land next to the tomb. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Right.
so
But the idea is that she did those actions and that we too are called to listen and to proclaim. That's great. That's a wonderful children's sermon. So you now have 4 sermons, folks. You didn't
right.
just get, yeah, that's wonderful.
Well,
Um,
Dave, I want to thank you because you have really helped me. Every Easter, I struggle with this, and you've really helped me put this together for my congregation and myself. And I'm very thankful that you and I get to do these Easter things together, even though we can't be at the same parish doing Easter because I think that'd be way too much fun. Um, but I am thankful for that, and I'm thankful for everybody who's listening here, and I'm praying for all of you, whether you are preaching a sermon or preaching with your life, that you, in fact, are risen and that you are experiencing the risen Lord in all that you do. And just so you know, I'm home today because I'm going to be working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Tuesday's the Chrism Mass for tomorrow. I said, I'm taking Monday off because I'm going to
good for you.
practice what I preach, which is some self-care.
Good for you. That's excellent. And yeah, I hopefully will be experiencing some risen as well. I'm sure I will. I actually thought about bringing some yeast and rising some bread and then baking it and using it for Eucharist, but that might be going a little too far.
There you go.
Yeah. Then somebody would say, well, didn't they use unleavened bread? And really, if Jesus had the Last Supper today, he would be using whatever the recipe that Olive Garden has to those breadsticks, right?
Oh,
That's that's what he would be using.
can Jesus use Texas Roadhouse bread as well?
Oh yeah, you know what? I think he would. I think he'd be a big fan of sourdough. Taking what is sour and making it lovely. So
And that's where we kind of bottomed out just now.
we did.
We're
Well,
not
yeah, and
we're not
yeah,
talking about bread.
and you
So
can hear that my voice is failing. I need
I
to
know.
take
So
some time
we
and
need to let
rest.
you go.
Yeah,
But thanks to everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to take care of yourselves and get some rest during this week, and to know that no matter what, God is pleased with you because of who you are and how you are serving. And all of the liturgies, I promise you, they're going to be okay. Okay?
they're going to be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well, thanks a lot, Dave. I'll catch you in the next one.
He is risen.